We all know Pocahontas from the famous Disney movie. Well, it was the first Disney feature film based on historical events that actually happened. But beware, just because it's based on a true story doesn't mean it's all true. In fact, some parts were invented and others were romanticized. In this video, we'll see what of what was shown was truth and what was fiction. But first, it's important to clarify that the main sources of the events around Pocahontas are the writings of John Smith and the insights of various scholars. Pocahontas didn't leave anything behind, so we don't know her true feelings and thoughts. That being said, from what we do know, this is the real story of Pocahontas. Hey guys! Welcome to Historical Gossip. In this channel, we do what humans have done best since we've evolved to be a super aware being. Gossiping! Viewer discretion is advised. This is an educational documentary. The Disney movie is set in 1607 when a group of English settlers lands in Virginia to explore the New World, and this corresponds to reality. In that year, the English settled for the first time in America. King James I in England had indeed granted the Virginia Company of London the financing to land in the New World. The colonization of the Americas had begun, leading to real invasions by the Europeans who aimed to civilize Native Americans and spread the Christian faith. Leading the expedition was Governor Ratcliffe, who wanted to gain prestige at the court of King James by conquering a new territory full of resources. And among his men, who do we find? Captain John Smith. Of course, he really existed, known as a brave explorer famous for his courageous and thrilling adventures. On the other side, among the indigenous people, we find Pocahontas, who, however, was not a young woman as they presented her, but a child born around 1595. Pocahontas was the favourite daughter of Chief Powhatan, the leader of a federation of 30 Algonquin-speaking tribes. Pocahontas wasn't her real name. It was a nickname and not a very nice one. In fact, it meant spoiled child or little shameless one. Like all Native Americans, Pocahontas had several names, including Matawaka, which means flower between two streams. Quick note. I don't know if it's just me, but don't you find it curious that Pocahontas' real name means flower between two streams? She who was the link between two peoples seems like a bit of a metaphor for her destiny, don't you think? Close parentheses, and let's continue with the rescue of John Smith. In the Disney movie, John Smith meets Pocahontas and they fall in love, which was impossible in reality since Pocahontas was about 10 years old. Also in the film, they are discovered by Kocoum, Pocahontas' suitor, whom she doesn't want to marry. In reality, Kocoum did become Pocahontas' husband once she grew up, but back to the film, at some point they are discovered by Kocoum, who becomes jealous and attacks John. A colonist friend of John sees the scene and shoots the Indian to defend his friend. Kocoum dies and John is captured by the Indians. At this point, Chief Powhatan condemns John to death, but moments before the execution, Pocahontas rushes in, throwing herself on John's body to prevent her father from killing him. The girl saves the settler and also manages to convince Chief Powhatan not to use hatred to resolve conflicts. Pocahontas thus earns the respect of her people and the English settlers. But did it really happen that way? Well, we don't know for sure, but there are different theories about it. Smith, initially in his accounts, makes no mention of any capture, but 10 years later, in a letter to Queen Anne, he tells a previously unknown story. Smith tells that while exploring the area around the river, he was captured by the Indian. He was brought before Chief Powhatan, who decided to kill him. And here comes Pocahontas, who at the moment of execution risks her own head to save John's. Not only that, but she persuades her father so much that he orders John to be safely escorted to Jamestown. There are doubts about the truth of this story. Why did John write about the rescue only in the letter to Queen Anne and not 10 years earlier in his books about Virginia? In the 1610 letter, Smith begged Queen Anne to treat Pocahontas with dignity. So it is believed that John invented the story to improve Pocahontas' image as she was about to land in England and to gain prestige himself in the motherland. There is also a popular Scottish ballad at the time well known that tells a similar episode to Smith's rescue, but set in the East. John may have drawn inspiration from the ballad for his story in defence of the English colony's sincerity. It should be noted that Smith's early writings were primarily ethnographic and geographic and did not mention his personal experiences, so there would have been no reason for Smith to disclose the episode. It has even been suggested that the rescue could have been a ceremony of Smith's adoption as a new tribe member, but there is no evidence of such rituals in other Native American groups. Whatever happened, that encounter marked the beginning of a friendly relationship between the settlers and the Indians. Pocahontas herself often visited the settlement, playing with the children there. A period of peace was established between the Indians and the settlers, so much so that during a famine in the colony, Pocahontas and her servants brought so many supplies that they saved the lives of many who were starving. But unfortunately, peace did not last long. With the subsequent expansion of the settlers, some natives feared for their lands, and conflicts reappeared in 1608. Pocahontas had to save Smith's life a second time. Smith and other settlers were cordially invited by Chief Powhatan to Rococomoco, traded with the natives, and were treated kindly, but they delayed and had to stay overnight. That same night, Pocahontas went to John Smith to warn him. Her father intended to send men with food, and once the English laid down their arms to eat, they would be killed. She also told him that, of course, she had been ordered not to say anything and begged him to leave. In this way, during the meal, the English kept their weapons ready and there was no attack. In the cartoon, we see Ratcliffe shooting with the intention of killing Powhatan, but John sacrifices himself to save him, taking the bullet in his place. John's wound is very serious, and he is forced to return to London to heal. In reality, John left Pocahontas' village to explore new territories, and in 1609 he was seriously injured in a gunpowder explosion that forced him to return to England for treatment. The English told Pocahontas and the natives that Smith had died, killed by French pirates who had shipwrecked on the shores of Britain. But Chief Powhatan had doubts about this version of the story. He knew that the English were prone to lying, and indeed, as we will see, he wasn't entirely wrong. Pocahontas married the warrior Cocoon, but in 1613 the girl was captured by 2 English settlers who wanted to trade her for some prisoners of Chief Powhatan, along with various weapons and tools that the Indians had stolen from them. Paul Talcum released the prisoners, but the settlers were not at all satisfied with the few tools and weapons returned, causing a long standoff between the Indians and the settlers. For an entire year, Pocahontas was held hostage in Airy Kews, where, however, she was treated very courteously. Pocahontas got along well with the English, so much so that she converted to Christianity and, after baptism, took the name Rebecca. When the English allowed Pocahontas to speak to her fellow countrymen, the girl reproached her absent father for valuing her less than old swords, pistols, or axes, and told them that she preferred to live with the English. During her stay, Pocahontas met John Rolfe, a tobacco farmer who fell in love with her. They married in 1614 and had a child, Thomas Rolfe. Their marriage created a climate of peace between the Jamestown settlers and the Powhatan tribe, lasting several years. Pocahontas became a symbol of civilization, and promoters of colonial Virginia used her story as an incentive to attract new settlers and investors to Jamestown. In 1616, John Rolfe and Pocahontas arrived in London, where Pocahontas became a symbol of peace between the Indians and the English, but also an example of a civilized savage converted to Christianity. However, during the visit, Pocahontas discovered that John Smith was still alive and living in the same city. When Smith visited the Rolfe family, Pocahontas was not pleased. Left alone for 2 or 3 hours when they spoke, Pocahontas remembered the courtesies they had exchanged with Smith and Powhatan, and the pact she had made with him that Smith had not kept. Pocahontas decided to return to Virginia, and in 1617 they boarded a ship. However, during the journey, Pocahontas fell ill and died on March the 21st of the same year in Gravesend-on-the-Thames, far from her land. She was about 21 years old. Her last words were, "We must all die. I only want my son to survive me." Pocahontas became a legend, passing into history as the brave Native American who favoured peace between the settlers and her people. In her memory, a life-size bronze statue was erected in St. George's Church. Later, Pocahontas became the emblem of the possibility of assimilating Native Americans into European society, civilizing them and converting them to Christianity. The Europeans would save their souls and elevate them to a higher level of humanity than before, thus justifying the extermination and appropriation of their lands. The message conveyed by the story of Pocahontas was that if an intelligent and courageous native like her appreciated the way of life of the settlers, then it meant they were not behaving wrongly. And you guys, did you know the real story of Pocahontas?